JVL, big news. We got big news in the world of politics. I know
Huge.
You're real excited for this.
Yes.
We have an official winner in the 2024 election. It's already over. It's already over. Allan Lichtman has pronounced the keys have been trued and falsed.
Today, Allan Lichtman's ready to tell us who's going to win in 2024.
It's such the whole thing is very funny.
He's turned the keys.
The race was tight, but the keys were right.
JVL, what has happened to get you in a tizzy this morning? Because I wake up and there's about a dozen messages in the Slack from you and Tim Miller that your enemy Allan Lichtman has resurfaced. He went away for a little bit, but his keys are back. What's going on?
Not my enemy. Let me just say this up front. I am sure that Allan Lichtman is a lovely guy. He's 77. He has lived this enormous big life. You know, he's a good Brooklyn kid, went to Stuyvesant High School in Brandeis, and he was a phenomenal athlete, ran track and wrestled in college, and got his PhD from Harvard, went on Tic-Tac-Doe. Do you remember the game show Tic-Tac-Doe I think it was the 80s?
His name is Dr. Allan Lichtman. To date, in a tremendous display of broad knowledge and good luck, he has defeated 16 opponents and has amassed in cash and prizes a total of $75,050. Come on over and let's beat the dragon. I mean, really.
The dude had a stash and this beautiful, beautiful hair, just a mane of hair, like Ron Burgundy. And, won himself $100,000 on a TV game show. I'm sure he's great. So not my enemy. It's just that he does this thing with like chicken bones and dice that he has sold to desperate Democratic voters as science. And it is the political equivalent of like, if you wear this little necklace made of garlic cloves, the bad orange man can't hurt you. And it drives me crazy. His keys to election are not actual science. Not science.
You say that, but he's gotten all but one of the elections right in the last 40 years, is my understanding.
Almost all of them, right? It's not all of them.
It's almost all.
It's not all of them, right? It'd be a little more impressive if it was all of them. So his keys are, this is, like baseball underwent this with the dawn of sabermetrics, and a lot of the data analysis in sabermetrics was like really interesting and new, but also a lot of it was like just quantifying things that everybody had always known was true. So one of Lichtman's keys is the incumbent party nominee actually the incumbent president? If yes, then that's a big help.
Number 2, the incumbency key. The sitting president is running for re-election.
Biden withdrew from the race, costing the Democrats this key. It is false.
Wait, you're saying it would have helped the Democrats if Biden stayed in?
If Biden stayed in, they would have salvaged this one key. That's all.
Okay.
Oh, really? Being the incumbent helps? Yeah, of course. That's yes, this is like the most.
Is that key true or false? Is that
and in this case, it's false.
Can we stop for a second? Because the thing I find most troubling about this whole system that he has created is that he has one idea, keys, and like a key is a thing and you put it in and it has a code, or if it's like in one of the old keys, you put it in and it moves the tumblers and the lock and it unlocks. But instead of using the metaphor of the key properly, he instead says, is the key true or false? That's not how keys work, really.
Yeah.
That drives me, just as a writer, that drives me kind of crazy. Every time I see this man show up and talking about his true and false keys, I'm like, it's not, please stop that. Anyway,
well, another problem is that he posits his keys as true or false questions when most of them are subjective answers, right? There are a couple true or false. There, did the incumbent president's party win or lose seats in the House in the last midterm election? That is a true or false question, right? Short-term economic outlook, long-term economic record over the course of the administration. Okay, sure. I mean, there's a little bit of subjectivity in there, but mostly you can objectively answer those. But then there are things like, is the incumbent president's candidate, the incumbent party's candidate, charismatic?
Number 10. The incumbent party candidate is charismatic.
This is a very high threshold key. You have to be a once-in-a-generational, broadly inspirational candidate. Harris has not met that standard, so this key is false.
What does that mean?
True.
What does that mean?
False.
So in this case, he says that Kamala Harris is not charismatic. Okay, fine, I can live with that. But then he also says that Donald Trump is not charismatic.
The challenger is uncharismatic.
Some people think Donald Trump is a god, but he only appeals to a narrow base, so that key is true.
False? True? I don't. That becomes another thing in Harris's favor. And I don't know. You could say a lot of things about Donald Trump. I have a feeling that the people who love him, really, he is a almost uniquely charismatic figure in a way.
Yeah.
And so Lichtman then in the video with the New York Times, he gets turned inside out trying to talk about how, well, that's not the real charisma that Trump has because he's so polarizing. But it's just, you wind up with all this nonsense.
He's got the Riz. Is that what the kids say? No, my favorite one of these true false ones, there are two questions that he almost sidesteps entirely because
foreign policy successes
Kamala
and
Harris
failures.
has done so well that she doesn't even need to get them. But one of them is, I think, foreign policy.
We still have 2 keys left. The foreign policy keys.
You're right. Foreign policy is tricky.
And it's like, how do you have a true or false question? There is foreign policy. It's things are happening in the world. It's not controversial, to what is happening out there. I find that key to be mysterious. That's a mysterious key.
Yeah, and also, to the extent that foreign policy influences American elections, and the answer is it never does, except for when it does. Right? Foreign policy never influences American elections, except in 2004, when it really hurt John Kerry because he was disqualified to the electorate because of his flip-flopping on Iraq. This is, again, it's all nonsense. And it is nonsense that is peddled by people like the New York Times to try to make anxious Democratic voters feel better. Right.
But JBL, shouldn't you feel better now? Because you're an anxious Democratic voter. And he agrees with you on certain things here, right? He says the economy has improved. People should be happier with where things are. Isn't Allan Lichtman basically making the JBL case?
Do you know who he wrote his book about this with?
Who?
He had a writing partner to come up with his keys to the presidency. And his writing partner was a geophysicist. And he was drawing on the precepts of science.
Sure, as one does.
And as he explained, because again, this is all pseudoscience. That's what it is. They say that they really modeled their keys on the precepts of earthquake prediction.
Which is, can you predict earthquakes? Is that a thing that we can do now? Really well?
In a sense,
well
you
enough
could say
to,
that. Boy, if you live around the San Andreas Fault, at some point in the next 900 years, there's probably going to be an earthquake.
Okay. Well,
see, it's science. We predicted it.
That key is true.
That key is true. It drives me crazy, and the extent to which people just glom onto this because they're looking for a warm blanket. It is nuts to me. And it drove me nuts during the entire, Will Biden step aside fight. If God help me, I got 150 emails a day from people but then we would be forfeiting one of Allan Lichtman's keys. And how can we do that?
This was one of my favorite parts of this whole saga was the people who were but the key. But they're giving up the key. And I just sit there and I look at them and I'm like, what are these? What keys are you talking about? And then I went down the Lichtman rabbit hole and I was like, what are these? What are these people talking about? This is insane. But look, you have to give the man credit. He's gotten he's gotten most of all of the presidential elections for the last 40 years, right? He got Trump. That's the big one, right? He was one of the only people who said Trump could win.
Yeah.
He predicted it.
If we were going to take this seriously for a moment,
Sure.
Which God knows I don't want to
Anything's
do.
possible.
I want to talk about his hair, and we'll get to his hair in a minute. But the weirdness of him claiming to have a universal heuristic, which is applicable throughout space and time, without his taking into account anything about the shifts in power within the Electoral College, is insane. Because you can pretty easily predict who's going to win the popular vote in American politics. That has not been very hard. You could do that very, very easily over the course of the last 20 or 40 years of elections. It's never really in doubt. You just look at the polls, you know who's going to win the popular vote. And that made predicting the outcomes of elections fairly easily right up until 2000, right? Which is when he first gets one wrong. And right now it's like a 3.5 point advantage for Republicans. And again, I'm just as a question of modeling, having a model that does not take into account anything about how the Electoral College advantage has appeared as we've wound up sorting the two parties by rural versus urban, is crazy and should tell you that you shouldn't take it seriously, right? Look, Kamala Harris is going to win the popular vote. Yeah, I'm happy to predict that. Now, will she win the Electoral College? We don't really know. Like that, I think she's probably got like a 60% chance, a 65% chance maybe to win the Electoral College. But in a one-time outcome, that's the equivalent of flipping a coin, right? If you can get 65% odds at a casino, then you will make money all day long because you can just sit there and do it over and over and over again. For a one-time outcome, even like 75-25 might as well be a coin flip.
Well, I mean, I'd take that coin flip. But
not depending on what you were wagering, though. Depending on what you had to put up.
Which of the keys is Pennsylvania? What number key is the state of Pennsylvania? Because that, I saw one of the models. Maybe it was Nate Silver's, maybe it was somebody else, but maybe it was 538. I can't remember who it was. But one of the models is basically if Harris wins Pennsylvania, she has a 96% chance of winning the presidency. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, he has a 92% chance of winning the presidency. I mean, it's wild that your former home base. You're a New Yorker now, of course, but once upon a time,
but in Philly.
You lived
all Philly in my heart,
forever. Baby. But Pennsylvania is the ball game. That is it. It feels like that should be a key. Is it a key? Is it one of the keys?
I don't think the professor said so. So okay. I guess it isn't.
It's not a key. Turns out not a key. Who knew?
Can we talk about his hair?
Yes, because when I watched the video, my first question to you and our producer Jamie was, "Is that a wig?" Because it's
so the video, he's running
full. He's
so
running.
The video, he is running. He's at a track and he is competing for the Senior Olympics, which I guess is a thing.
See that guy in the red shirt? That's Allan Lichtman, 77-year-old Allan Lichtman, and he's racing in the qualifiers for the Senior Olympics.
And he is with his knee braces and his running tunic, tank top. I don't know what you want to call it. A lot of arm flesh going on. And the dude is 77 and he has a big old mane of sandy blonde hair, which I guess could be natural.
At the very least, I mean, it has to be dyed. I mean, that we'll grant that.
Do you trust 77-year-old men who dye their hair?
Which one of the keys is dyeing your hair?
Look at the hair. It's crazy. I love it.
I'm just going to start yelling, "What key is that?" anytime somebody says anything. What key is the price of bread?
When you look at Lichtman's career, and this is a guy who's you can tell he loves being famous. This is not some guy who came up with a really serious piece of political theory and then wanted to move on and do other
spotlight.
Right. This is a guy who's oh, I got some snake oil I can sell. I'm going to keep selling it. They'll put me on TV to talk about it. I love being on TV. He is like a character from a John Updike novel, with the hair and I'm going to qualify for the Senior Olympics and put me on, doesn't matter what the TV is. Send the New York Times camera crew out to the track and I'll shimmy. There's this moment when he's shimmying his hips for the camera. I was like, dude, have this much dignity.
Dignity is overrated. Dignity is overrated. Not one of the keys.
I'm sorry.
Dignity,
it sounds like I'm
not one
making fun of him. I'm not. I think he's great. He's a character. We need more characters in politics. Politics used to be filled with characters, right? 30 years
We need
ago,
more characters.
before things were that serious, Allan Lichtman could have been like a congressman or something. Like you would have passed someone who looked like him in the halls of Congress.
He's a Matthew Lesko.
All you have to do is call. The call is free and the book is guaranteed. So call me. You have nothing to lose and a whole new life to gain.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, he is a
guy
Matthew Lesko.
He should be, so Matthew Lesko, for folks who don't know, he's the guy who would run around D.C. with dollar bills all over his suit, right?
Or question marks?
That was him?
Like the
were
Riddler?
they question marks? Whatever they were. He had stuff all over his suit. He should go on TV shows with a custom suit that has keys embroidered all over it.
Keys.
The key man.
So many keys.
The key master. One last question. He was on a game show.
Yes.
In the 1980s.
Tic-tac-toe.
It's everybody's game of strategy, knowledge, and fun. It's tic-tac-toe.
Could you explain the rules of tic-tac-toe to me? Because I can't remember if it's just straight tic-tac. Do you have to answer trivia questions? Was it like, how did the game work? Do you remember?
So what I remember most about it was the dragon.
Dragons jumping around on the board, looking for a place to say hello. We are looking for a place for him to say bye-bye.
That sometimes there would be a space on the board, because the tic-tac-toe board in each of the spaces was a TV monitor, a tube TV monitor. And kids, go look that up on Wikipedia. And I believe you would answer some form of question, but I don't remember whether it was a trivia question or not. And you would either then get money for it, well, the X marks the spot, or sometimes there'd be a dragon behind it. And the dragon was kind of like what was the press your luck? The whammy.
The
whammy on press your luck. And it would like take all your money or something. I don't know. It was glorious in the way that all of those 1980s syndicated game shows were glorious. And I mean, to me, I see tic-tac-toe and I just think about staying home sick from school in third grade, because that's what you're homesick. You're just on the sofa with a fever and a little thing of Robitussin, and you're under the covers and you're watching Press Your Luck, Card Sharks, Tic-Tac-Toe, and then The Price is Right, the granddaddy of them all.
Well, I look, again, you're being very cynical about the keys here, JBL. I'm excited. The keys have unlocked the future to the White House.
It has been foreordained.
The keys. All right, JBL, thank you for explaining the keys to me. This is all fascinating to me. I feel assured. I feel assured that the election's in good hands.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel. Go over to thebulwark.com and sign up for all our free stuff. It's even better. We'll tell you things that aren't pseudoscience.